Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. Welcome to the Lillian Lodge Kopenhaver Center for Advancement of Women in Communication. Today is we're very excited here at the center. We have three of our very own SJMC alums, and very proud to have them in this panel today, titled Climbing the Ladder of Success. On our far right, we have Joelle Parra. She is a graduate of broadcast communication. She is currently the social media manager for the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation. Thank you, Joelle, for joining us.
Thank you.
Also, we have with us today the esteemed Barbara Corbellini Duarte, who also is a broadcast journalism graduate. They will all be speaking later about their history with the school as well as where they are now. But I'll leave them. They have such great stories. I'm just going to give a brief introduction on all the panelists today. And last but not least, we have Saviñon, founder and creative director of LD Creative. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Our panelists will be here today speaking a little bit briefly about their career, how they got here, where they're going, and kind of give us, their insights and kind of their story of where they have been as a journalist, as a professional in the industry. So thank you, ladies, and if Joelle, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. I'll just add that I also, part of what I do at the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation, which is where I currently work, is I'm also a communications and social media manager. So I do a lot of public relations, media relations, and everything you can think of. As far as starting out, I graduated in 2010, but before graduating in 2010, I actually got the opportunity of working for Channel 7. I started in a very entry-level position and worked my way up to associate editor, and then I decided I wanted to do a switch to, I wanted to get out of news. One of the things I realized in my journey to where I am today is three really important things that I needed to do was to be open-minded, learn to create opportunities for myself, and never stop learning. In being open-minded was also, what happens when you get to the job that you think is your dream job, and then you kind of decide, I want to try something different, but you may not have the educational background in it, or you may not have experience in it. Well, that's where you have to be open-minded and create opportunities. So I found different ways of getting to where I wanted to by doing that. Basically being resourceful, looking for an internship while I was working at Channel 7, even though I was not in school at that point, I think. But I was able to leverage my network and talk to someone who gave me the chance to actually do an internship at their PR firm. I don't know if I don't know how much time we have each. I don't want to.
We have a few minutes, so if you like, we'll continue to Barbara and then Lily, and then we'll just come back and forth.
Because I don't want to take all the whole time here talking about what I was doing. But basically, it's not a linear. One thing that is very important to learn is that it's probably not going to be a linear path to where you're going to end up in, and that's totally okay, as long as you're open to learning and to even doing jobs that you may have not thought you were going to do. If they're within the same branch, for example, you can still apply those skills to get to where you want to be eventually. Especially today, where so much is changing in the landscape of public relations. Now you're asked to do things that maybe some years ago it wasn't the case. Social media is a big component of it. You'll probably find a lot of, and that you guys can probably speak to this too, that you're doing a lot of things that were not traditionally part of their field, but now you're out there, handling social media and doing campaigns and creating your own content stories. If, let's say, you're not getting news out, you're getting your own news out. You're working as your own news station, news room. So there's a lot of things that tie together in the road there in different fields. And that's where I'll that's where I'll go now, and then I'll move it over, and then I'm sure they'll have more things to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really identify what you're saying, because you have to learn to create opportunities even in your workspace, because you're new, you're probably going to be, you know, if you're the youngest person there, you're the newest person there. So you have to, even if you don't want to switch fields, you have to make people notice you and see you in your new workspace. And for me, it was kind of weird when I first got the job, because I was like, now what? Like, I've been in school all my life, now I just have to work forever? So it was also like a personal journey on figuring out where do I want to take my job, because when we're in school, we kind of feel like, oh, the job is the goal. And then you get the job and you're like, oh, I need a new goal. How do I do that? So, yeah, I mean, I really identify. I wanted to get a sense, like, who is in PR here? Advertising? Journalism? Okay, it's kind of. And, I mean, I've made a bunch of bullet points, but the ways, getting a job, I think I basically got the job for 4 reasons. The connections I had, my own work, the skills, and the attitude that you have. And my connections, I started making them in the classroom, and I would not have gotten the job that I have today if I haven't met Professor Pinto, who's here. It's true, because, you know, sometimes we think the classroom is not going to give you much, but I was such a hard worker, and I was like, trying to be a good student. The professors liked me. They told another professor who I was, and that's how I got connections in the school that created connections for me outside school. So don't take for granted the connections that you can make here. Almost all the internships I got because of connections. Then when you get a job in communications, they're not going to give you a job if you just have good grades. You need to show the work. And to show that you can do work, you either have to have your personal project, a blog, or something you keep, like start your own business, or you need to do a lot of internships. So I started with the connections. The connections led me to the internships. The skills, you're going to get some of your skills in school, some of your skills in the internships. Some of the skills you can get in your free time, you know, if you have a hobby. You know, photography started as my hobby, now it's my job, and now I say I need a new hobby because I turned that into my job. And also I think it's really important to have a good attitude, because a lot of young people arrive in the workspace and you just act like, I mean, not everybody, but some people would just act like you know a lot, you know, and our generation is different than generations that are working now. We have a different attitude by nature, but we just have to respect and know how to work with people that have been there longer. And it's just really, I mean, I speak more to journalism, but I'm pretty sure communications in general, you have to learn how to deal with criticism. And if you don't know how to do that, you're not going to survive. So it's really like, start working on that now. You know, I'm sure you get criticism from your professors. Learn not to take it personally. And yeah, and there's just one more thing I want to say. Is that, no, there's more, but I also want, before you go into like the job search, take time to learn about yourself, learn about your skills, learn about what you like to do. Think about how you want to spend your day and how that job is going to affect the way you spend your day. I wish I had done more of that. You were talking about what I wish I had done. I wish I had spent more time learning about myself and about what I like, which I'm doing now at the job. I'm trying to shape my job to be more of what I like to do. But it took me about a year to get there, and it's still on the work. So, but if you can do that now, do it. Sometimes I was just so busy and I was trying so hard, and I didn't take time to think, what do I really want? You know, I was just like jumping in everything. But it's good to, you know, and it's hard nowadays because we have the phones and we are on TV and we have Netflix, but I'm trying to do that myself, you know, have a couple minutes in the morning, drink your coffee and just think about life, because thinking is important. That's it.
Yes, thinking is very important. My name is Saviñon. I'm the founder and creative director of LD Creative, and I graduated from SJMC in spring 2010. And I actually majored in PR, and then I found my home in advertising, which goes to show I should have gotten an internship, right? So yes, to go with her point, for sure, number one, get an internship if you can. Just because what you learn in the classroom is it's like the tools, right? And then when you have that toolbox, you have to learn how to use them. So how do you learn to use them? By an internship or through a part-time job or even a full-time job. And really what got me my first job, I mean, through my undergraduate career, I was very involved in school. So that was the only experience I had because I didn't have that internship. And the last class we had to take as PR students is campaigns. I don't know if that stays the same. And it's like, oh my gosh, we have to take campaigns by itself because it's so big. And let me tell you, that class got me my first job, because turns out that the person that I was working with in my group was an HR recruiter. And she was looking at me the entire semester. And when we graduated, she said, hey, I have a job for you. And I said, what? I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even looking. I was going to take a break. I'm not ready, you know? And yeah, the next week I interviewed and I got the job the week after. So basically between the day I graduated, I walked, a month later, I got my first job. And it was as a copywriter. So when I started writing, I realized, oh, wait a second. This is the kind of writing I really enjoy. It's not necessarily press releases. It's more of the short, punchy kind of writing. So I worked there for a year. And it's funny because my plan, to go with Joelle, you know, that your path is not necessarily linear. My plan was, okay, I'm going to go to school, and then I'm going to go to college, and then I'm going to get my master's degree, and then I'm going to work and become, you know, the CEO of a company. And that didn't work that way because I went to school, I went to college, I graduated, and then I got my first job. And I was like, okay, well, this is the first monkey wrench, let's see. And I still applied for my master's, but it turned out that in advertising, you need time. So most of the time when you have your you're doing your graduate degree, you can't work. And I had just gotten this job and I had no experience, so I waited a year. But it worked out really well because everything that I learned that year, I was able to apply in the classroom, and it was such a great way to connect the dots that I feel like I got more out of my graduate degree than I would have had I just gone straight. And so I worked as a bilingual copywriter for about a year and a half, and then I did my master's in Boston University. Then I came back and I had some internships while I was there because I was so used to working and I knew the value of it that I was like, okay, well, I have to go, you know, do something. So I was an art director intern, then I was a social media intern. I got a little bit of everything. And I came back and I said, and now I have to get a job because I have to pay off my loans. So I started looking and I applied for the job that I thought was the longest shot ever. I was applying and I'm like, I don't know, this one, odds are they're not gonna call me, but who knows. I got the interview and I got the job. So I was a marketing director for the Jills, which is a luxury real estate company at the beach. That was really interesting because as a marketing director, I was kind of the only marketing person there. So I got to do the copywriting, the graphic design, the work with a social media company, manage vendors, like photographers and things like that, and do events. So I was like juggling a bunch of different things, and that's when I got to really see, okay, what do I enjoy? Out of all this, what do I really, really love, and what makes me whole? And I don't want to get philosophical, you know, but when I wake up in the morning, I don't want to dread Monday morning. I want to say, hey, okay, another day at the job. So I found that creative was definitely my track. So I started LD Creative, and that was 2.5 years ago. And what we do is I say we because I'm used to talking about, you know, like as a general population, but I do graphic design, copywriting, and social media. So if you were to ask, okay, so what's the point of majoring in PR and then doing advertising? Let me tell you, those PR skills come in really handy when there's a crisis and in social media with managing your clients. So I feel like no matter what you major in, you know, knowledge is never gonna go to waste. And the connections that I made, again, in school while I was, you know, studying, got me to become an advisor for Bold, which is great. Bold is a student-run communications agency. I don't know if you guys have seen it around campus. We're trying to make some noise. And it's basically a great way. The reason why I even started to think about it, and I was really happy to be chosen as, you know, the person to advise it and kind of bring it back, is because I felt that that would have complemented my undergraduate journey perfectly. And that's basically an internship coming to you rather than you going to an internship, because I know that probably the commute between one campus and the other is really long. You have homework to do, you have projects to do, you have group, you know, presentations and things of the sort. So there's a lot of time that you have to dedicate to school, and a lot of people don't have that time to go to an internship physically. So the way Bold is created was basically we have different clients, and every student gets to choose, I guess, their top 5 preferences as to what kind of role they would like to play within the client, and then I pair them. So you're basically working in a team, and it's as realistic as possible, and you're working with a real client, and you have that communication. So you work with them for an entire semester. Then you get an evaluation from the client, and you get to evaluate the client and just your semester as a whole. So you could do that, for, if you want, all the semesters you're, at FIU. So you could be a sophomore, you could be a senior, and it's pretty great. It's pretty great. I do a lot. I don't sleep too much, but it's awesome.
So we have a few pre-written questions, and then we'll turn it to the audience who also wants to ask you a few questions. So we've talked about today about the importance of having a personal blog, a portfolio.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you each kind of speak in your respective fields, journalism, advertising, communication? What do you think is the biggest asset to have in the personal portfolio for the students as they're going out into the field?
I can start with journalism. I don't know if there is a biggest asset. I think, again, you have to think about what you like to do, what you want to do, what area you want to do. So if what you really want to do is write, then obviously you need to have really good writing clips. And the way you do that, you either, I did the internships, I did the Miami Herald, I went to Scripps, I did Naples Daily News, and then I went to NBC News. And those were our internships that gave me clips, and then when I got the job, I had all these clips to show. I had a lot. And then it's like, you're not saying that you know how to do, you're like, I did all this, and they were published in real places. But I know people that got amazing jobs because they kept a blog. And I have this one friend, I did a New York Times Student Journalism Institute, which is a 2-week program that you meet students from across the world, not the country. And my roommate, she loved fashion, and she kept a blog on fashion for 3 years, but it was well done. You're not just like not paying attention to your typos, you have to know how to rate. If you're in school, maybe you can have a professor help you. It has to be well done. She kept it well. She had followers. She had people reading it, and because of that, she landed an internship in the Wall Street Journal magazine. Now she's an editor in Teen Vogue, and that's all because she had a blog. And you can, so I don't know what's the biggest asset. I think the biggest asset is it just has to be good work.
Yeah.
And if it's writing, then it's your writing. If it's video, then you have to do really great video. Although video also involves writing, so there's always great writing. If it's photo, it has to be photos. If you're into design, coding, then that has to be great. And again, all of those things you're going to need writing, because you need writing for a website, you need writing for social media, and it doesn't matter if it's journalism or if it's PR or if it's advertising, you need to know how to write. And for social media, we're all doing social media in different ways, but we're all doing it. So learn how to write. Learn all the digital stuff because that's important, but don't forget to learn the writing, because if you have a great Twitter, but then you have a typo in every other tweet, you're gonna lose credibility. So
That's true.
I think that's it.
Speaking on public relations, my story of getting into public relations, like I said earlier, I wasn't planning to. I did put it on my high school yearbook, but when I got to college, I wanted to be a reporter. When I realized I didn't want to, after 3 years working in news, I had to get creative. And this speaks to what Lillian was talking about, that you need to find a way to basically market yourself or create something that shows a portfolio of work. So how would you do that with public relations and social media? Easy. With social media and with anything that we're all doing requires storytelling. In the middle, and the gist of everything is storytelling. And that's something we all have, whether we're doing advertising, whether we're doing journalism or PR. At the end of the day, that's what gets someone to do an action. How many people here know someone who has a small business? Okay? Let's say you needed to get PR experience. Well, how do you start? Why don't you reach out to your network and the people that are out there that may need it. A lot of small businesses don't have the means, or they may not have the insight to think, well, I need someone to do my social media, or I need to learn how to get coverage for these things that I'm doing. So that's how you can create an opportunity for yourself. As far as the internship that I got when I was working at Channel 7, it was because a friend of mine that I met at News, he'd switched over to PR, and I asked him, you have any advice to getting into public relations? Well, he said, I have something better. Why don't you come and do an internship? And granted, it was kind of not really an internship because I wasn't in school. It wasn't really like a very legit, but he let me go over there, and I worked there. I wasn't getting paid, but I was getting paid in experience, as I say, in that sense. And I was working 7 days a week. My days off at Channel 7, I was driving all the way to Boca and doing that. And this is what I'm talking about, creating opportunities. And this is what I'm talking about, being creative. I had no PR experience, and that's how I was able to get it. And you may not get an internship now, but you can create. You can hire yourself. If no one's hiring you, hire yourself. Invest in yourself. That's number one. With PR, with what we do, we have such a creative field. You have your own unique touch in how you write, how you storytell, how you create ads, that you just need to find people that are, you can start, obviously when you're starting out, you might have to reach out to your mom, if your mom's got a business, you're like, hey mom, let me help you with your cleaning business, let me do some Facebook for you and Instagram. And that's one way to start building your portfolio. And the same can be said for each of our professions that we have here. Yeah. Because if no one's hiring you, you need to go hire yourself or find some way to do that. Yeah, so that would be my advice for that.
If you don't hire yourself, why would anybody else hire you, So think about it that way. And as far as, the creative side of advertising, portfolio is definitely important. I could tell you that my first portfolio was done on PowerPoint. I did not know Photoshop enough to be able to create a portfolio. I've come a long way, okay?
That's awesome.
But focus on quality and focus on the difference between, especially for the designers, difference between an art director and a designer is pretty big, in the sense that a designer makes something beautiful. An art director has that strategy and the idea behind it and the big picture. So when you go and you do that portfolio, make sure you write at least a blurb on what the brief was. What was the problem that you solved with this? It's not just a pretty ad. Why is it effective, And that is what will set you apart. Also think about, you're competing with portfolio schools, people that they don't really focus on the research or on the strategy or anything like that. And I feel at FIU, that's why I came here, because it's more well-rounded. But when it comes to a creative job like that, you're going against people that have been working on their portfolio for 4 years. So make that blog, make sure that you're grammatically correct when you write on Facebook. And even if you don't submit it as, and I know it may be a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's really important to say, even though if you don't submit it as, I guess, a portfolio piece, make sure your social media is clean. Make sure that it's well-written and that's eloquent and that it's tasteful, because there are people that are hired to only look at your social media before you even get the interview. So think about it that way. That's kind of like your elevator pitch, is your social media. So I know that it's really tempting to put things on Snapchat and you think it disappears. It doesn't really. Instagram or Facebook, or Twitter even. But it's be very careful. Be very, very careful with that. It's a double-edged sword.
And it's another way to market yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you can open up like a Instagram account, Twitter account. I mean, it's right. That's right. People are looking at that already. So if you're applying to certain jobs, that can be another space for you to showcase who you are as a professional. Right. You can have a personality. You should see mine. I mean, mine has a little mix of everything, and yours, all of yours too, because they want to see a human being, not just a robot. I can do, this. But be very wary of what you put, and make sure that you use it to your advantage. Yeah. It's there for a reason. It's a good marketing tool for yourself in many, many ways.
And be very careful with your opinions too.
Yes.
Another thing you added about creating opportunities, it just came from a conference that they were talking about how you can also volunteer for nonprofit, because pretty much every nonprofit that exists needs help with something.
Tell me about it.
And it's a way of volunteering, which a lot of us wants to do, but it's hard to find time, when we have all these other things we have to do. But I thought it was such a great idea. I never thought about it. You can volunteer, you can learn your social media skills doing for a nonprofit or for a church, and that's also a way of gaining new skills. So,
Right.
yeah.
So we'll take a question from the audience. Oh, we're shy. Oh,
For you said you wanted to be a reporter and you were like working towards that for 3 years. What made you decide that it wasn't for you?
Well, as probably each of us here can attest to this, working in any of these fields could require, you're going to put, there's certain things that go into it as far as like time. It could be very time consuming. But I didn't mind that. With news, it's like a 24-hour cycle. Like our thing at the station would be news never stops, because it doesn't. So for me, it was more of a personal thing. I felt the culture, why I loved it. I loved working in a newsroom. It was so exhilarating, especially when there's breaking news, a really, really like national, international story. And there's things I still really miss about that. But from a personal standpoint, I kind of wanted to expand into other areas of communications. And the reality is you're working a lot of hours, and it's you working holidays and in a way that you may not want to, because you're in the station the whole time pretty much, coming in during hurricane season, and these are the realities of the jobs out there. You're going to have to sacrifice some things but you have to decide which things are you willing to sacrifice for what you want to do. What's your end goal? At the end of the day, I just wanted to pursue something different, but I still cherish and I miss some of the stuff that that came with it. And a lot of the news things that I learned then have been so helpful now in what I'm doing. A lot of the connections I had there are still people I'm good friends with, and people that I'm able to see when I'm out doing public relations for events and stuff. I'm still reaching out to people that I knew from then, and from a work relationship, it also helps. But that's kind of what I went another place. I just kind of personally fell out of that and into something else.
When you mentioned about connections, how do you keep up with your connections? Like all these people that you have interacted with since school. Like obviously there's LinkedIn, but sometimes, for example, it's hard for me to just keep up with all these people I talk to. Like the whole follow-up process is just like aggravating. Sometimes I just like maybe focus too much on what I need to do today or what I need to do this week, and I forget to follow up with all these connections of people. Like, what do you do?
Well, I'll just say a little bit, and then if one of you wants to speak to it. I would say that the most important thing is make sure that these following up and things are organic, like natural. You don't want to force something, and sometimes it's as simple as even people that you haven't spoken to in a long time, because everyone's busy, everyone's got their own thing going on. Don't be afraid if it's someone that you haven't talked to in maybe even a year or so, but you're like at a point where that person. I'll give you my own example. When I wanted to switch over, I reached out to he was a former anchor, and I said he turned into a PR pro. And I hadn't spoken to him in person in a long time, but I had kept in contact every now and then, like, oh, happy birthday on Facebook, Yeah. But it wasn't a happy birthday just in case for the future. It was just, really just a happy birthday. But I did just reach out to him, and I said, hey, I noticed you did your shift to public relations. How was that for you? Something as simple as just reaching out, even if time has elapsed. Think about how you would react if someone reached out. Would you get mad if, you haven't talked to me in 10 years? Yeah. You really wouldn't.
I think people are really understanding. And I mean, social media helps, I'm friends with almost everybody on Facebook.
Yeah.
And, if you need to reach out, you always have Facebook. If you don't have their phone number, try to keep, the email saves the email once you send it, keep the number on the phone. And the same thing, I've reached out I asked one of my editors, former editors at the Herald, to have lunch with me, and he just did. And the other thing is also, don't take your connections for granted, because sometimes like peer connection is so important too. You know, I have all my students, like the people that I was in school together, we were always students. Everybody is in important media companies now. I have friends at the Bell, at the Herald, at NBC, at CBS, everywhere. And even if it's a small connection, it's somebody that can walk to an editor and say, hey, my friend is applying for this job. And again, now I mentioned the New York Times Journalism Institute. I have a friend who's applying for a job at the Herald. So they're like, hey, and she just came to me. Can you, like, do you know, I saw you know this person on LinkedIn. Can you give me a recommendation? And I mean, so far my experience has been pretty good. Like, I never had somebody say, no, how dare you talk to me. So I think it's mostly just reach out. And even now, you know, if you have our contact information and you have a question, like, reach out if you need to. That's how I got my job, actually, because I had the person who had my job before me. She came to speak in my class, and I got her contact information, and I asked to follow her one day at the Sentinel, and she let me. And then I found that then we were friends on Facebook, and then I found out on Facebook that she had a new job, and I'm like, hey, I'm applying for your older position. So, you know, sometimes even like you don't think the connection is gonna give you something right away, but you never know in the future. You know.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I have also a little story that a friend from middle school, hadn't talked to him since, but we were friends on Facebook, and I saw that he was really into illustration, and he's so talented, and I saw that he would post like every other day some type of typography that he was drawing or different things, and I needed somebody to do an illustration for something that I was doing for a client, and the first person I thought of was him. So I sent him a message and I said, hey, I know we haven't spoken since we were 12, but you seem to be really talented, and it would be great, you know, if we could work together. And then it's kind of like we rekindled, you know, our friendship. But like what Joelle's saying, be natural. Be natural. Don't be the type to put your business card in people's faces. It's not, I feel like connections are valuable when they're relationships, not when it's just a like or a follower on Twitter.
That's very important.
Wow, that's very good.
Well, ladies, we at the center, three key things for us is empowerment, leadership, and innovation. So I'm going to challenge each of you to take one of the words, and with a thought that you had previously spoken about some of the challenges in your career, and how could you take one of those challenges and spin them into something positive. Leadership and innovation.
That's a hard question.
That's a tough one.
In your respective field, what would you recommend in the sector of, in the field to be innovative? We talked about the portfolio. We talked about social media. Think about how we were previously discussing challenges. What would you do different? What can
Specifically in innovation, okay.
innovation, leadership, or empowerment? Pick your favorite.
I mean, with either of those topics, I think the key thing is what I said a while back about never stop learning, because you know, education, and even when I say education, I also mean like self-taught things, because there's a lot of things that I'm sure we self-taught ourselves, including like I didn't know Photoshop, and I taught myself how to do that, so now I actually can make memes and stuff. Yeah, but like with whatever. Anyway, but what I mean with that is never stop learning, because those things will feed the empowerment, your ability to be a leader, your ability to innovate. See how other people do things. Like I like to follow, for example, I like to follow on social media. I like to follow people that I love what they're doing, even if it's big brands, small niche markets, bloggers, anything that is going to inspire me in what I'm doing. I like to follow that type of stuff. I like to see what other people are doing. I like to listen to, I know there's a TED FIU, so I know there's talks that you can listen to that might bring about an idea in your head. So there's so many now with the internet. It's just a free-for-all essentially for learning. Like it's a wide, you can learn anything and everything online, and equip yourself with the tools that you need. If you never stop learning, and you should never, because it's I think it's a saying that the day we stop learning is the day we die. I don't want to be dramatic, but from a professional standpoint, I mean, it could have some truth. You are stunting your own growth. So if you want to be a leader, you want to empower other people, and you want to be innovative, just don't stop learning, even from people that, you know, are at different levels in life. You know, some people might be just starting out, other people might be, you know, at a height of a career. There's something you can learn from every single person, and their experiences and your own experiences when you look at things in hindsight and what you could have done better. So,
Yeah, that was great.
Thank you. I feel like, as far as empowerment, I could talk about empowerment because I've had experiences where it's not all, you know, fun and games. It's not all beautiful. I've had bad experiences. I've had bosses that have tried to belittle because of my age more than anything. And I've always said, you know, I can't control when I was born. You know, I can control what I've done with the years I have, but I can't make myself older. So why would you sell me short? Listen to me for a second. And if you don't like it, that's okay, but listen. So I feel that kind of, those little nuggets really helped me build the confidence that I have now in saying, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to just do it from start, like from scratch. Every company started at one point, so why not now? You know, what better than in the present? So as far as empowerment goes, I think that I like to help other people, especially other women, of course, do the same. So that's why I have interns, and I like to teach. Not necessarily teach in the classroom setting, but just, I guess, in the mentor setting, just because I know what it was like when you were there, and I want to make that difference, because I feel that we could sit here and complain about it, or we could do something about it. So I try to take it upon myself to do as much as I can to help empower others, and in return, I feel a little more empowered myself. So I would say, to what Joelle was saying, read a lot. Read articles, read books. Lean In, amazing book. Lynda.com, LYNDA.com, amazing. Videos on everything you could think of. And just try to become an interesting person. Nobody wants to hire somebody that's flat. Nobody wants to be friends with somebody that's boring and only talks about their job. You know, have hobbies. And at the end of the day, those things become inspiration for your work. So everything, I think, ends up helping the other sides of your life.
yes.
Oh.
Great point.
I think I can speak to innovation. I just feel like innovation is a constant, and especially now, because really no one is ahead. There's so many changes happening all the time, every second, that we're all just trying to figure out pretty much. I mean, maybe Google is ahead, I don't know, but I'm not even sure. But it's just like every single company, and whether it's, again, journalism, PR, advertising, we're all trying to figure out what's the best way to reach people, how there's so much information out there. So innovation is just a constant. And I mean, when I was in school, you should know how to write, do videos, and do photos. And now, I mean, you need to do all that, plus you need to code, plus you need to do social media, plus you need to do web designing. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you said everything when you said just like never stop learning, because that's just what it is. And you don't need to necessarily be in a classroom to learn. Like, I'm on YouTube all the time. Like, sometimes I'm working on a video and I don't know how to do something, you just Google and you figure it out. And it takes time, but that's how you do it. And
I mean, I remember after I graduated the first time, I was like, and now? How do I learn? I don't have a professor to stand there and tell me things that I could, you know, and grow that way. So it's upon, like, now I have to do it myself. Oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? So I started taking random classes, and I don't know, I would be a student forever if I could, but, you know, gotta make some money.
I would add to that in continuing the learning process, it's totally fine to have a former professor as your mentor, you don't have to sever those ties as soon as you get out of school. One of my mentors is sitting, right back there, Professor Arlengi, and it's important to have those things because they've kind of been there, done that, and they can show you different ways. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've reached out to him for advice on something. We've had lunch and everything before about it. So don't be afraid to make those connections with your professors as well. And one thing that I do want to get across is something that I think we all fall victim to is what is called inaction by perfection, where you think everything needs to be a specific way for you to actually take action on a goal that you have. So if my blog doesn't have all the right pictures, I can't start my blog yet, or I can't get a job yet because I haven't had this in my portfolio. Just go and do it.
Yeah.
Do not sit there. It's never going to be perfect. You're going to have challenges. You're going to get into some stuff that might make you sad because you're like, why?
Yeah.
But you will get out of it if you just keep pushing. And that's key. Don't get stuck in perfection.
And you're gonna learn in the process.
Yeah.
There's a saying that a crappy start is better than no start at all. I just started a blog last week because I was like postponing forever, and I'm like, I just have to do this and whatever. Yeah.
Like, I need the perfect title.
Exactly.
No, just go do it.
Yeah, there's another saying like, if you're not embarrassed of the first product you put out there, then you did it too late. And it's true. Sometimes I look back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did that. But yeah, I mean, it's all about growth, and it's all about growing that thick skin, especially in our industries.
Thick skin.
Thick skin.
Yes.
I know that you probably, you love your piece of like work, whatever you did, and you're so proud of it, and then you show it to somebody, and then they tear it apart. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean they hate you. It's okay. Just take it for what it is and apply it in the future. It's gonna make you better.
Question. I speak Spanish most of my day, and when it comes to time that I need to write in English, I can know the grammar, but I think that I lack I would say the expressions. I might know the vocabulary, but the expressions. So what would you suggest for me to do so I can improve that?
Okay, I have the problem. I write, and I don't write like a first language speaker. I mean, the first thing is like Spanish media is huge here. So if you wanna stay in or go into Spanish media or communications, you can probably do that, and you're gonna be valuable because you speak English and you're writing English too, even if it's not perfect. The other thing is, I mean, I had to learn English first before I could learn how to be a journalist, how to write, how to speak, and I just took a lot of classes, and I took English as a second language, I took regular grammar classes, and I don't know, I just studied and I read and I wrote, and I don't think, I'm still in this process. It's not over. I still have preposition problems. It happens. Sometimes I still don't know a word. I don't, but the most important thing for me is I'm not embarrassed of it anymore, and I just ask around when I don't know something. Sometimes I want to say something and I'm not sure, and I just like ask my boss, and I'm not ashamed. And I don't know if people are judging me. Maybe they are, but I just don't care because it is what it is. I don't know. And I also write with a translator, also the Google Translator right there, because sometimes I think something in Portuguese, and then I'm from Brazil, and when I write in Portuguese, the same thing happens now because I write so much in English, and then I'm writing and I'm like, but I want to say that. So I think you just turn into this bilingual thing for life. I don't know. I mean, don't let that fear stop you from doing it, because you're probably overthinking it, and you're probably paying attention to it more than other people are. And to be really honest, I mean, good writing, that's what I think what saved me and what got me into journalism, when I realized that good writing is simple. Good writing does not need big words. You don't need to use a lot of adjectives. You need to, and this goes for all type of communication, for any type of writing. Yeah. You need to know how to describe something, and you need to look at it and paint a picture. And you can do it, anyone can do that, we just have to practice. when you're telling a story, you're not using big words, and you just need to learn to put that into writing. And when I realized that, one of the professors here was talking about that, I'm like, this is so much easier than I thought, because I was trying to use all these complicated words and make these complicated sentences and use all this that you don't need to. You just have to say what you mean and describe what happened. So I don't, maybe like taking some writing workshops or reading, like you're talking about reading really helps, get something that you really like and dissect that, see what you like and try to apply that. Vocabulary, like I said, I'm still learning. You're a second language speaker, that's gonna be there, but that just don't let that stop you from doing and trying. And one of my professors brought one time a kid's book to show how good the writing was, because it was so simple, and that stuck to me so much. I was like, that's great writing, and it's a kid's book, so it doesn't need to be fancy to be good.
Just to add to that, I had, which is fantastic, especially the part about simplifying your work.
Oh, yeah.
I have my story is a little funny, because one of the jobs that I worked at was Crowley Maritime Corporation, and I was hired as a bilingual communication specialist. I was born in Spain, and I moved here when I was 6, 7. I learned English. I spoke Spanish with my parents. My parents are from the Dominican Republic. I spoke Spanish with my parents at home, conversational Spanish. I did take a high school AP course in Spanish, passed it, aced it with no problem. But then when it came to getting this job, I became a little self-conscious, because I'm like, this means I have to write ad copy, I have to write press releases, I have to write internal communications pieces in Spanish for people in Central America and Puerto Rico. And I'm like, oh, the last time I really sat down and started writing in Spanish, I was in high school for my AP Spanish class. And what did I do? I was there for 2 years, and the time that I was there, I did a few things. I bought myself a very simple dictionary in Spanish. I'm still fluent in Spanish. It's just the writing part that can be a monster. So I did that. I also, there was a colleague of mine who's a native Spanish speaker. She was Mexican, and she would proofread my things. Like, she was the sweetest. I love her. To this day, I still stay in contact with her. And she would proofread a lot of my things, and from a lot of her corrections, I would learn, how to change what I was saying. And I did keep it as simple as possible, because it can get overwhelming if you don't. So from my personal experience, find someone that will be willing to proofread your work that's fluent in English, and especially in the written part. And maybe get yourself a small dictionary that has, so you can reference fast, because that's sometimes what I have to do. Like, sometimes I forget words in Spanish and some in English. Like, I'll only remember them in one. It's just like, it all gets jumbled in here. So do that, and read a lot. Reading in general is how we learn how to communicate, how we learn how to write. Yeah. So don't stop reading in English. Find a good book that you like, maybe, or something. Start reading the newspaper. That's one big thing that I love to do, and just do it. Yeah, and don't feel held back by someone. Someone's judging me. Do not think that. Just go for it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think you could also look at different shows. Just because I think that you're also talking about the conversational, the phrases and the idioms and things like that. That's like pop culture, or like things that are just like so intrinsic to like America. And I think that primetime TV, Modern Family, things like that, just because they're quick-witted jokes and things like that, I think that you're going to be able to catch them faster and faster. And I know there's some books on idioms themselves, and I don't know if it's if they translate them to Spanish or if they just kind of explain what they are, so you get a better understanding of. I feel like that's kind of like part of the culture, and it's really hard to, I guess, understand and apply when you're not a native speaker. So I think that those would probably work with what they're saying, of course.
Yeah, great point.
Well, ladies, thank you on behalf of the Kopenhaver Center.
Oh, I think you had one.
Thank you. I'm very interested in branding and cultivating like an idea about a company or a person. specifically, I'm more into like the music industry in terms of helping build an artist's brand, and I kind of feel lost because it's already hard to find a specific like person who is doing what you're doing, but since like what I want to do is music, like that even shrinks it even more. So in terms of like coming up with the branding or the creative direction of a thing, is that more on the advertising side or on the PR side?
That's on everything side.
You
Yeah.
see? And that's what killed me.
Do you have a
So what-
specific band that you want to do that for?
A specific
Or
I
a
mean,
musician?
Yeah.
You do?
There's
It's
a-
your own or is your friend?
It's me, it's other people. Cause I do music myself, so I practice on me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Like what we were saying,
Yeah.
the whole like marketing yourself and maybe, you know, hiring yourself. In this case, you're hiring yourself for yourself, which
Yeah,
is
for
great.
sure.
With music in general, I think taking a look at people that are extremely successful at branding themselves, like, you know, it might be cheesy to think, but the Beyoncés of the world, Taylor Swift, that's all branding. A lot of who they are, yeah, they're talented, but their like PR machine and advertising is out of control. It's like a crazy train,
Yeah.
and there's no stopping it. Like everything that they put out there is gold. Even I'll even go more pop culture reference on like a Kylie Jenner that literally she puts something on and it sells out like that. That's part of branding. Everything that you need to do is branding. So look at it from that point of view, as far as like see someone that you like what they're doing, or even if it's Beyonce herself or Taylor Swift, and how they're marketing themselves, how they're positioning themselves. Because a lot of what they're doing is basic principles of PR advertising and even crafting their own stories, like, which is part of journalism. Like they know how to get their stories out there and put themselves out there. So one of the first things I would do is look at people that you know, you can tell they're doing it right because A, they're everywhere, and B, they have some sort of like influence on our culture, our pop culture. That's one way to start.
I think a big thing is timing for anything. When it comes to if you're going to promote on social media, time it right. When is your audience there? You know, when are they going to hear what you're saying? So I guess the timing really helps in getting lost or not getting lost in the noise. Just because, I mean, like what she was saying, advertising is everywhere. And in terms of, I guess, finding a mentor, maybe go find, I mean, it's not necessarily music production. I understand, like, I'm a piano player. I played for very many years, and I thought I was going to do music, and then I didn't. So I get the struggle because it's a very small portion of people that really dedicate their lives to that. And then within that, to find somebody that's kind of like a brand manager or something of the sort is really difficult. So if you're willing to travel, look at LA, you know. But if you're not, you have people right here. Miami's a big city.
And it's booming.
And it's booming, right? So find an internship. I don't want to go back to that, but find an internship, find a mentor. Even if it's on an internship, somebody that you can kind of like pick their brain. And definitely just, you know, fake it till you make it. Start looking at different people. Lady Gaga, for example, recently spoke about women's empowerment, actually.
Yeah, she did.
She did like a little video clip and saying how, you know, it got to a point where she just started saying no because it was so away from her brand and from what she really wanted to do in herself. She wasn't being true to herself. So she started saying no and being comfortable with saying no. So, I mean, it's little things like that, I guess, show the human side of it, but also show the professional.
Yeah.
One thing
and talent.
One thing I will add that I didn't mention with the people that we were talking about, like the Gagas and the Beyoncés, is they know their audience.
Yeah.
Figure out who your audience is. That's with any campaign that you do in marketing, social media, even when you're writing as a journalist. You have to know like who you're talking to and how to talk to them in the most relatable way. So who is the person that's listening to your music? Who is that person? Who is your ideal person that's sitting there and enjoying everything that you're putting out there? One of the reasons that they're so successful, like a Beyonce or Taylor Swift, they know who their audience is and they know exactly how to market to them. But the key thing in everything, and this is to everybody, is knowing who you're talking to.
Yeah.
and knowing how to talk to them. But once you find out who they are, you know more or less what kind of content you need to put out there that they will enjoy. And there's a lot of grassroots campaigns you can do. You know, we have, like, if we're talking music locally, I mean, Wynwood is a huge space. You can start finding events that maybe you can do open mics at, and do that. Grassroots stuff still works.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not digital everything, but you can put it into digital. You can do a Periscope, or you know, about, like, someone can do that for you, or you can.
People want to be out.
Yeah.
People want to be out, and Miami is growing so much now. I mean, do you have social media accounts for these bands or for you?
Without getting long-winded, I actually like host an event for music. It's like an art gallery for music. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just try to
That's.
make it simple.
Uh-huh.
But like I've been trying to use my education to supplement that. And I'm
Yeah,
afraid if I
perfect.
choose PR or advertising, like I don't want to be marginalized. Like I want to be a brand manager, but I'm afraid if I pick one, someone will say no, you can't do that because that's more on this side or that.
It's not like
Not at
that.
all.
It's all
No.
about your
Yeah.
skills. It's all about what you can do with your skills. You can
sizes anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it all
Yeah.
does this
Exactly.
now. It's
don't
all-
even think
Yeah.
about
Yeah, I would just go for it and be all of those things. In fact, you're more valuable being all of those things. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I was saying in the beginning about not being a linear path, because I bounced, like I was at a digital marketing agency for a while. I did corporate communications. I'm doing communications for a nonprofit and social media, because all those little tools that I got along the way, the job I'm doing now, I'm doing it much better than I could have had I not had those. So
For sure.
just go for it.
Any more questions?
Sure.
I have a question for you about your experience working with the real estate agent. My aunt owns a real estate office, and I want to work for her with like social media and stuff like that. I know she doesn't have any social media accounts. I'm trying to create an opportunity for myself, so I want to know.
Great.
Do you have any pointers on that? How was your experience with it?
Well, I mean, it depends on who your audience is. So, what kind of houses is your aunt selling? You know, is it, big mansions, or are they houses in, I don't know, like right around here in North Miami? So, you have to find, first of all, the area it's in, what kind of people live there, what do they do, what do they enjoy, what are they looking for? Are they families, or are they more of like bachelor pad kind of cool places? You know, do they live there because of the location and proximity to certain areas, or because they grew up there? So you kind of have to understand the market a little better before you do anything. And then once you do that, then you could say, okay, well, these people are more prone to reading or seeing a brochure in their mailbox rather than seeing it on my Facebook, or vice versa. I hope that answers your question. Do you have any follow-up? Okay.
Yeah, that's an important point too, because people consume information in many different ways, especially nowadays. Like, there's some people that still love their snail mail.
Yep.
We see this with our donors all the time. Like, some of them like their snail mail. I don't have an email. Don't even ask me. And other people prefer communications being. So knowing how to reach them is also important, and just having a plan for every type of person within your target group, your target audience. Target audience is key.
Yeah.
So don't forget that.
You also have to see their competitors. You know, what are they doing? How do you set yourself apart? And also, the last thing you want to do is look like your competitor. So if they're, green and yellow, you should definitely be the opposite. So it's loud and clear that you're not that person. And also, when they purchase the home, what kind of feeling did you give them? And I always use this example: Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks. Why do you go to Starbucks? Because of the experience and I guess it's just more of the sociological kind of factor. Like, oh, I went to Starbucks and I'm walking around with a green straw, right? When you go to Dunkin' Donuts, it's been proven in taste tests time and time again where Dunkin' Donuts coffee tastes better than Starbucks. But for some reason, people keep going to Starbucks. So it's the same thing. It's the same concept where, okay, when they purchase a house, what kind of feeling did they get? In the overall experience, are you going to give them like a little packet saying like, welcome to your new home, like a feel-good kind of deal? And there's another expression where it's like, they're not going to, people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. And that's something that you could definitely take and put in your pocket, use as much as you can.
And one more thing. I'm sorry, we'll keep going over. I just thought about something because that was so spot on what you were saying. But one of the key things that I learned when I was at the digital marketing agency was value proposition, which is what sets you apart from your competitors. So in sitting down, think about what is that gives you that edge. And creating an experience could be that edge. You know, what you make people feel, you know, your turnaround time, maybe you are a one-stop shop. Maybe your real estate place is also a title person. They also do insurance, home insurance. Maybe they do it all. It's a one-stop. Your one-stop shop is your value prop, because that person doesn't have to go through, you know, 10 different companies to buy a house. They can do everything they need to do through your aunt's business. And that might be your value proposition.
Yeah.
If that's what sets you apart. And ours, for our foundation, one of the things that we feel sets us apart is that we're cure focused. So our research is solely on curing diabetes. That's our value prop. What we're trying to do is cure diabetes. That's where so if you're a person who's interested in that, you probably might choose us or maybe not. I don't know, it just depends. But finding that is what is also key to setting yourself above your competitors.
There was actually a real estate agent that contacted me because she sells mostly like actual shopping centers and apartment buildings. So it's not just like one unit. So part of her deal was, okay, well, we'll sell you the shopping center and then we'll make sure to do the advertising to make sure that you rent out every single unit in the shopping center you purchased. So it's kind of like a step ahead, and she got to charge more for that, that's for sure. But the customers that came to her felt like it was a one-time deal. They dealt with one person rather than dealing with two different people that maybe wouldn't communicate, or they just kind of, you know, they cut the different people along the line. It was just A-B. So that's another idea you could do. I mean, there's plenty. Just gotta think about it.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any more questions? Well, at the Kopenhaver Center, our value prop is advancing women and academics, professionals in the field of
All right.
communication. I want to thank you all. Thank you for coming back to the school.
I also want to say how proud we are of you as our alumni.
Oh, thank you.